When it says we're live. Live. Okay, right. Hey guys, and welcome to the final live show for the Catch Up Book Club for 2019.
Is it not?
It's not apparently. This time we will be discussing A Dance with Dragons, which is the last currently published book in the series. Just before we start, just a little bit of an update on what is going to be happening with the book club going forwards. We won't be carrying on doing Fire and Blood, but we will be back to do another series. But we're taking a 3-month break before we start that because I'm pretty sure we can all agree that reading these books back to back has been very taxing. So
We say back to back. I mean, always kind of just leaving it till the very last minute. So
yeah, pretty much. So yeah, we will be back in March, April time, but we'll be taking a little break. So as usual, we'll start off with introducing ourselves and what we originally thought. Originally? That's not the right word. What we thought of the books overall. So I read it in 2 parts because the UK editions are split into 2. And I gave part 1 5 stars. It's my favourite in the series so far. But then I gave the second half 4 stars. I didn't enjoy that one as much. So then I guess because it is 1 book overall, it would be a 4.5 rating.
Interesting. Interesting. Am I next on the rota? I love it. Okay, so I also read it in 2 parts, but I've got these covers, which I do quite like. And I gave both parts 4 stars, but I think I'm the opposite of Becca. I think I preferred part 2 just a little bit more. Isn't that really bizarre? But I think there's like a lot of things in part 1 that I think, like not a lot of parts, like there's like a particular thing that really like gets right on my nerves. So I'll mention that later. But yeah, I still did. I like them. I do like them, but I do find them really hard because, you know, I don't really read a lot of epic fantasy. But yeah, both 4 stars. But part 2 is slightly better for me, I think. Plus, I'm called Gavin, if you didn't know.
Who's next? Ashley?
Oh, well, finish it, but I've read it previously. I guess I should introduce myself as well. I'm Ashley from Don't Have a Degree in Reading. The details are kind of fuzzy, but from my previous reads, I really enjoyed this book, but there are definitely I didn't like other characters that I don't find their POVs as enjoyable. So I would probably rate it like maybe a 4 out of 5 stars. That's my least favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm Cody from Cody's Book Corner. This is my second time reading it. I read this huge brick of a book, which is one of my only original books that I own that are like more than 2 years old. And I agree with Gavin. I felt like the second half was a bit better for me. The first half was a slog. That's why it took me so bloody long to read it. I pretty much read the whole of the second half in the space of the last couple of days. But it was a reread, although I feel like I did misremember a lot from when I first read it, because certain things happened in this book that I did not remember. Certain characters were introduced that I completely forgot about. So it was an absolute joy rediscovering it. And I gave it a 4.5 just because it took me so long to get into. I think the first time I read it, I gave it a 5-star, but also my heart isn't happy with the season TV show ending still, and that kind of ruins it for me a bit because I'm like, yeah, you know the deal.
100%.
So, is it still your favorite, Cody?
I think Clash of Kings might be.
Wow.
A Clash of Kings.
I think so. I don't know. I might be mixed up in my brain, but I think so.
Wow, Clash of Kings is the one with the Battle of the Blackwater. That's what it's called. Yeah,
I think that was my favorite. I can't remember which one I've given 5 stars or because I've given 4 stars.
I really disliked that one. That was my least favorite.
Yeah.
So, seeing as we seem to have differing opinions on the first and the second half, I know Ashley, you will have always read it in its full form because they don't split it down in the US, do they? I'll just find out where the first half does end. I think what it is, because the second half is called After the Feast, so this is the timeline that runs at the same time as A Feast for Crows, and this one is where they join up again, and then everything's moving at the same time. So this is the one that runs parallel with A Feast for Crows, and I really enjoyed this because it focuses on all the aspects of magic in the plot.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of Bran and Bran discovering his powers, and then you have who are the other perspectives we have in here? There's Jon, and a lot of it is focusing on the whites and the giants and the wildlings and things like that. There's also
Reek.
some stuff going on with Melisandre. Yeah, there's Reek. Is that in this part?
Well, to be fair, I don't know, because I listened to the audiobook and I realized some of the chapters were kind of crossed over a little bit. Because I tried like see where it did stop on the audiobook, and it was a few chapters after where it leaves in the book kind of thing. So it was really weird. So I think the audiobook kind of messed it up a little bit for me. So it might have merged some of it. I don't know. But
I have some Reek in here. I'm flicking through the first half.
Yeah.
I think why I liked the first half so much is because of all of the Bran stuff, which is surprising because Bran is one of my least favorite characters overall. But all of the stuff with the law and the children of the forest, and there was flashbacks as well from his perspective of the things that happened in the past with Ned, etc. So all of that stuff I was a lot more interested in, and the things that happen in the second half, like Tyrion comes back, but I'm not enjoying Tyrion's perspective anymore at the point where he's up to in the story. And Arya, not too interested in what she's doing at the minute.
It was the same for the TV show as well. I just wasn't interested in Arya after a certain point. I think after she kind of breaks away from like the Hound and stuff, she just got so boring.
There's also, I've just looked, the Ironborn are in the second half as well, and I don't like what's going on with them at the moment. That's not as interesting. So I think at this point in the series, I'm definitely more interested in the fantasy aspects than the political aspects. And that's why I didn't enjoy the second part as much. But why did you guys enjoy the second half more?
There was less mention of the word cock, to be honest. There was so
That's
much.
That's not like you to enjoy that.
I know, but it actually made me really start to hate the word. So I was like, right. So I was like, listen, part one, and I think I was the same with Cody. It was just feeling like too much of a slog for me. I did enjoy the fantasy elements. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the slow like build-ups and stuff. And like, it's been when I read A Feast for Crows as well. That was all in one, and I felt like I had to rush that one. This one I had a little bit more time because it's not exactly the first time listening to an audiobook, but I was able to enjoy it in like a different way. So it wasn't as like taxing on me. So I could like listen to it through that. But yeah, I think because also the chapters were like 1 hour long, it just took me far too long to get through. So what didn't I? Yeah, it was mainly just like the whole mention of cock, to be honest.
So what was it about the second half that was just better? Just the lack of the word cock?
There's so right. There were more moments that actually stuck with me in the second part, like especially like to do with like Jon, especially to do with Varys, and I mean I'm jumping way ahead here, but like it was definitely I'd say like the last like maybe 8 or 7 hours of the audiobook really got my gears going. So I think I don't know how it's split. I don't know like what kind of like I know what you said like with part one being sort of the timeline with the Feast for Crows. Like I didn't really understand. I in my head I don't know what's going on at what point in time. To be honest, I just like reading each chapter as they came. So it was like it was there in that solidarity moment, and I was just reading it, well, listening to it. So yeah. Wait, what was my point? It was I was going somewhere. Okay, yeah, so like definitely with the last sort of like 8-ish hours of the audiobook, it just felt like there was more things going on, more things that were building towards the next one, like the Winds of Winter. I felt we can like get into like some specifics later if you'd like, but yeah, it just like felt like there was more of a world. I guess I felt like part one was a bit too I don't know, I was just
For me, the second half was just so much quicker to get through because we had so many amazing scenes that I knew were coming up towards the end of this book, even though I had misremembered them slightly. And it was just, we were just hit with reveal and then new shocking moment, then new twist and new direction a lot throughout the second half of the book. And that's leaving me very nervous for Winds of Winter, I'll just say that. But so many revelations and so many, I just feel like we feel a bit more invested in these newer characters as well by the second half, because at the beginning you do not care. And then when it gets to the latter half, you're like, oh my God, this is all what is happening with these new characters. They're going to change everything completely, which was why I loved it so much, because it actually surprised me, even though I'd already read it once before.
Okay, I'm kind of just going to hop into the thing that I felt was the thing that shocked me the most about the entire book. Obviously, all of us were coming from a background, like Ashley and Cody were rereading, but Gavin and myself were reading for the first time, having watched all of the show. So the reveal of Aegon Targaryen, I was shook. And the bit that ties into the reveal with Varys at the end, where Varys comes and kills Kevin Lannister, because it was hinted at, because I'm pretty sure Varys said something about getting a baby out of the palace, or there was a rumor that he had done that. But when Tyrion cottoned onto who the child was, I was shocked, because I wasn't thinking about it at all. I just thought it was a random child, because throughout the series we have characters that just come in and out and they're not too relevant, like the minor lords and things like that. But I'm wondering what that means for the future, because we know from the fact that George R.R. Martin would only let them make the show if they could guess who Jon's mother was. We are safe in assuming that Jon is still a Targaryen, but now there's 3. But then the thing is, with the show, they put so much emphasis on the dragon having 3 heads, and there was all these conspiracies about who the 3rd head would be. But the 3rd head, all 3 heads were always present in the book. So it's, why did they bring that into the TV show at all if they weren't going to bring the 3rd Targaryen? It really frustrates me.
It doesn't make sense.
And another reason to really hate on the show, or not hate on it, I'd never truly hate it, but another reason why I guess the show this year just let so many people down, especially now, I've read the whole entire thing. Now, being somebody who's read the books and then reflecting on the TV show, I'm realizing that the divergence from what happens in the book to the TV show can be really infuriating at times. I was probably getting a little bit more wound up from the show from reading this book, because I saw so many missed opportunities and so much potential. And especially with this whole Aegon Targaryen thing in this one, it makes more sense with the, as you said, with the 3 heads. And I was now I'm kind of wishing that I hadn't, that I had read the books first. But then again, I don't know.
The show was still good up until season 8.
You're right.
Because I feel like if we'd have watched it having read the books, I would have been picking it apart a lot more. Like, oh well, they've ruined it because there's only 2 Targaryens and things like that.
That's true, but it does give me hope that, with Winds of Winter hopefully coming, that it will kind of restore my faith in the kind of world. At the minute, it's I've found the books quite hard to get through, but at the minute, I do feel like the future is still quite good for the books, and just with the potential that it could possibly go down, especially with that reveal.
Yeah, it was pretty infuriating for me to watch the show after having read the books. I think I was actually still reading them whilst season 1 or 2 was out, so I was full of hope that this stuff would come to fruition. And then of course you get halfway through the show and it's they're changing things, they're missing people, what the hell is happening? They're merging characters together, it almost felt like. And that's why I feel like I was rallying so much for Tyrion to be a secret Targaryen, so that the free dragon thing could be a thing in the show. Because all of these prophecies that came to sod all in the TV show, and it's infuriating. Even in this one, we still have, the prophecy of Azor Ahai. It could be Jon, it could be Dany. Melisandre, she's seeing snow constantly in her visions. Oh, and I loved as well the last part with the White Raven.
Winter has come, y'all.
That was such a good moment. I just needed to say that early on.
So Aegon was, the merging of Aegon as a character with Jon in the show was, it seems, because some of them I understand, I understand why there isn't so many Martells and we have fewer Martells and things like that. That kind of makes sense. Obviously I can't speak for the future of what's going to happen in the books and what losing those characters would do to the plot, But Aegon and Jon, merging them together, because what they've obviously done is they've called Jon Aegon. That isn't going to be his name when he finds out that he is a Targaryen. I was a little bit confused about the timeline of Jon and Aegon, because I assumed that Aegon was older and that Rhaegar had his children and then he ran away with Lyanna. But the way that Aegon is described is he's described as a child. And it took me a moment to remember that Jon was 16, but Jon is then considered a man, even though he is only 16, and this boy is still being referred to as a child. So I was really confused about the timeline and like the birth order of Jon and Aegon and what was going on with that. I don't know if there's anything like any sort of timeline that I've kind of forgotten earlier in the books that would clear like that up.
I don't think I thought about it that deeply,
No.
as you could tell.
I feel like Zaf would know.
Yeah.
One message. Yeah, I'm not sure the the lineage either, to be honest. It's probably in the glossary. Let's have a look.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. The bit that I always skip when I get to the end.
Yeah, and we always do that in the Bonathon live shows as well. Always just like having a little look at the end of the books of the glossaries. Like where is it? But actually, this what you were saying as well about like when things come to fruition. Does that mean that we think Jon survives? I mean, like, I don't know the whole thing. Like because I know obviously like with a show different, like, and I don't know if they did that based on George R.R. Martin's vision or not. Like, has it been confirmed that he lives after this? Or
well, apparently it's canon, right? Like they had to do the show the way that George R.R. Martin wanted it to end. So how could they have done that without Jon? So I'm not sure. But I'm not sure if it would go down the same way.
To be fair, Jon is so useless in season 8. So like really didn't out.
He screams at the.
He screams at things. Like they could have done season 8 without Jon, let's be honest. So maybe he does die and they just kind of use him as fodder to keep it as a surprise for the book that he dies in Winds of Winter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because Aegon could step up and take his place.
And if he does come back, I don't think it'll be the same way. I think it'll be something to do with Ghost being like a soul, extra soul, like a Horcrux or something.
Yeah. Like a nice.
I think he still lives just because Aegon Master gave him the advice of kill the boy so the man can live or something like that. And in my head, like this is him. He'll be a man, and do Jon things, I guess.
Oh. It's I realized something that I didn't, because I always assumed that Jon would live based on the story of the show. But I realized that I don't know if Ghost lives in the book, and that's not something that ever occurred to me, because his last thought is Ghost.
Oh God, no!
Not the dire wolf.
And in the history of what they've done in both the show and the book, to or abandoned wolves. I mean, there's only Summer's alive in it and Shaki's alive, and then Nymeria is just off amassing a pack. So but then this is the thing, like with this merging of the two characters, we don't know how relevant Jon is going to continue to be.
Yeah.
So
if Ghost dies, we riot. I swear to God, we riot.
I mean, he already didn't get a pat, like.
Yeah, I know. Like he's been done dirty not too often. I'm pretty sure in the show, don't they chain him up when they kill Jon?
Oh,
maybe. I know. He's currently he's locked in the armory because that big boar is around that Ghost doesn't like. But I know, like I feel like there was a lot of gore in this book. It felt a lot gorier than it normally is. So things are definitely getting more intense. With things
which is surprising. That's so surprising after Storm of Swords, considering how intense that one was.
Yeah, dying.
I think that's probably what George R.R. Martin needs to do, is like kind of not exactly just step up from that, but just to continue the idea that in this world nobody's safe. So I guess it's just to like make it like seem more savage. Like the characters that we're left with, the characters that are alive, aren't exactly like, especially with this inhuman threat on the way. It's like they're pretty much having to be just as savage or just as bad. Anything. Oops, back to the split screen.
Actually, you just reminded me. I think it's Storm of Swords that was my favorite. I think I was just confused.
I was gonna say Clash of Kings.
Storm of Swords I gave 5 stars, right? I think.
Clash of Kings was a drag. we were concerned.
Yeah, I think I just got them mixed up.
Yeah, I was sad that I wasn't there for that live show, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. But yeah, so it's gonna have to be as intense as that.
While we're still on the topic of Aegon, what did we think about Varys? Because I was wondering for a very long time, because it's different what they do with him in the show. So I was wondering where he was.
Yeah.
And then he just pops up at the end and kind of reveals that he has always been a supporter of Aegon.
Yeah, I did like that. Yeah, but I love Varys. I kind of really enjoyed him in the show as well. But in this one, I was missing him. I didn't know where the hell he was, but you know, to be fair, I don't really miss characters when they're not there, which I don't know is like the same for you guys. But if there's a character not there, I don't think about them because there's already too many other people to think about. So, like with Varys, that's why it was probably more of a surprise for me at the end because I wasn't thinking about him at all. So no, I get that, and I do really enjoy his character. I think he's portrayed like really, really well, especially with the way he like reveals. Like it's like he is like a spider, isn't he? Like he slowly unveils his web, and like the last like chapter is just like it's just like, this long kind of reveal, and it was just it was really good. And I don't know how else to say things are good without saying it's good. So it's good.
I love how Varys is essentially the puppet master behind all of this. Like he is the ultimate. I don't know. I just loved the slow burn conspiracy of this whole series, and the fact that he worked with Illyrio to give the dragon eggs to Dany in the first place in the first book. Like there's so many throwbacks to the first book. I think it's been done really, really well. And I hope it isn't like the show because I feel like in the books, Varys should be the only one left alive because he's earned it.
He is so clever. Yeah, he deserves to live.
Yeah.
Which brings, because I didn't read this book, so there were things that like I didn't get to pick up on because I didn't actually reread it this time. But when I was reading the Wikipedia chapters, one of the things that it talked about was, you know, Quaite's prophecies and how she reminded Dany to beware of the perfumed, I don't know how to pronounce the word, so forgive me.
Something like that.
Yeah, that thing. So I'm wondering if that is Varys, because Varys is always, when they mention him, it always talks about how he's always heavily perfumed. There are like other conspiracies of who it could be, but like my initial reaction would be Varys. But it's like, it's like, why would she have to, I don't know, not trust him because she kind of is where she is because of Varys. Like he's clearly on her side, as far as we know in the series of the books, anyways.
It seems, I think, is Varys supporting the idea of Daenerys and Aegon getting married? Is that like his end game kind of thing? Because otherwise, I would say he's more of a supporter of Aegon because he did save him. And I'm interested in the fact that he sent Tyrion to Daenerys, but knowing full well that he would meet Aegon along the way. So I'm wondering if it was kind of like a smokescreen, like, oh yeah, I'm sending you to Daenerys, but he's not. He was actually sending him to Aegon.
It felt too much of a coincidence for him to run into him. It made more sense to me because I thought, like at the time, like what were the chances, kind of thing. Now I know why, especially when it's revealed at the end. Like Varys is like the ultimate. He's playing the ultimate game, which is like perfect for this kind of world. You know, that's the Game of Thrones. You win or you die kind of thing. But yeah, for Varys, like in sending Tyrion off, he has this huge plan, and it's seeing it unfold is going to be really interesting. That's one of the things I'm most excited about for Winds of Winter. If I don't know if he's going to be in it or not, but he might not be in it at all until the very last chapter again. Who knows? But yeah, me likey.
I'm glad you enjoyed it because I don't think you liked A Feast for Crows, correct? You were not a fan.
It was like, it was kind of just above A Clash of Kings for me because A Clash of Kings was very, and then A Feast for Crows was like, you know, it's just a little bit of a higher pitch. But yeah.
So on what scale is Dance with Dragons? What's your noise for that?
Ooh, it's yeah. Yeah. That's fun. And his Storm of Swords was ah. Yeah. So that's the scale of it. Game of Thrones. Ah, that's my Game of Thrones one. I love Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. That is my favorite one. Like that. Oh gosh, just looking back at it now, I should rate all of my books in a key, shouldn't I? Like, it shouldn't be 5 stars. It should just be by pitch. Yeah.
Oh my god, yes. Revolutionary. Do it.
Yeah, unique.
Yeah, but
definitely unique.
Yeah, definitely unique, but no one would understand the system there. So maybe another time.
In the comments, and I love her. That is the moment where she seems to have popped in.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, it's just always after the filth, the smudge.
So what do y'all think about, now that you've read this book, now knowing that, another way that the TV show diverged from the books is that Sansa does not marry Ramsay.
Oh my God.
A dark imposter.
I was not expecting that. I just had no idea that Jane, is it pronounced Jane? Jean? Yeah. Well, honestly, I had no idea that was going to happen. Like, why would she pretend to be Arya for? Like, it was like you're putting yourself into like even more danger, like especially like with Ramsay and all that jazz. That just blew my mind. That blew my freaking mind. Because like I think, like, especially since like a few live shows ago when we were speaking about Sansa, we got a bit stick for it. So like I felt like with the show being this kind of pivotal moment for Sansa, like it shouldn't, like, what she goes through with Ramsay in the show. She got a bit backlash after the end, like in the final season, when she said like the what she went through shaped her character, kind of thing, and that shouldn't have been, like, that's not right. So I just find that extremely interesting that they decided to give Sansa kind of Jane's story in a way, especially since Jane was supposed to be married to Rob, and then all that kind of malarkey. It's like it's a very like intricate way that they've changed it. So I'm just wondering, like, what the hell's going to happen with like Sansa's story now? Like, what? Just
yeah, it's a tough one because that's, like you said, that was kind of one of the lines, wasn't it, in the season 8 finale? Like, a couple of episodes was about from the Hound saying, "This is what shaped you," and there it was Jane all along. I think that whole thing in the book is it's just Theon's redemption arc, right? Him coming back to himself. It's nothing to do with any women, and I guess they kind of changed that and gave it to Sansa in the show, which I thought was good. But are we going to feel for Sansa as much throughout the books as we did in the show? We shall see, I guess.
I feel like this opens up the opportunity for Sansa to become a lot more like Cersei.
Yeah,
because that's the current path that she's on. I'm interested in the fact that I kind of understand where the Sansa perspective. I don't think there was one at all in this book. I don't think we saw Sansa at all since A Feast for Crows.
Nope.
But I was more interested in the lack of Littlefinger, because he's like up there with Varys and being one of the most manipulative people. Well, he's more manipulative than Varys, but the people who have like an ulterior motive and an agenda that spans the entire series. So I thought it was interesting that we didn't hear from him at all.
Yeah.
And
I'm really excited to see where his allegiances will go now that there's going to be 2 Targaryens in the world. Like, who is he going to back? Because the thing with Varys as well is, even though you guys kind of thought that he was maybe going to go for Aegon over Daenerys has the dragons.
Yeah.
Pretty sure no one else can tame them unless they're a Targaryen. So unless Aegon proves himself to be able to tame one of her dragons, I mean, she's got Drogon, he's the biggest one. So, like, if she wants to measure dicks, she wins. So I'm guessing Varys is probably going to be like, once he sees those dragons, he's going to switch. And probably Littlefinger will be very similar, because they always go for the one with the most power, right? And Varys always, in the show, it's kind of like he has the realm's best interest. But we shall see.
We shall. Don't they have the horn to control the dragons, though, as well?
Yes. Someone else has to do it because it blisters their lips or something.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I'm thinking with the whole Aegon versus Daenerys thing, and with Varys supporting the Targaryens, I'm wondering if all of the Targaryen supporters, what they're looking for is Rhaegar. Because Rhaegar was supposed to be the best king ever. Like, Rhaegar was great. Rhaegar was like this mythical, he's like the stereotype of a hero. is what Rhaegar was, and everybody idolized him, apart from obviously the people who killed him. So I'm wondering if this whole support is because they think that they can kind of recreate Rhaegar and what Rhaegar could have been. I think the way that it's being done now, it very much opens up the plot to follow in the lines of what the show did to Daenerys, where Aegon will be the one, the good one. Like, we think that Daenerys is going to be the liberator and things like that, but she's actually going to, because I'm seeing a lot in the book of how she does always get what she wants, and if she doesn't, she kind of sulks about it, and she thinks she's entitled to these things. There is a lot of inner monologue about how she does what's best and how she wants to do what's best, but she can't because of certain reasons. But I'm also seeing, like, with how she just won't let go of Mereen, and it's not in her best interest, and she's like, well, I want it. It's like, well, they don't want you, really.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting as well that people have always, well, her enemies, the people that are scared of her, are always referring to her as the Mad King. She's going to be the next Mad King. She's crazy. She's lost it. Is that going to happen to Aegon or no? Because it's the same family line. Probably not, right? It's probably just going to be the woman who ends up being so crazy.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah. We shall see.
Yeah, it's sorry, I think Zaf would probably have a lot to say about that as well. I'm sure she'll hope that there is no madness, or at least handled, a lot better than what we've seen visually.
I don't mind as long as it's developed.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want some development. And this medium with like Martin's books has that area to develop, especially with how long the chapters are. Because like the chapters are about an hour long, if you don't know. So it's like, I think there's definitely room for that to happen. But with like Daenerys as well, like, sorry if we're like on the topic of like Daenerys and stuff, like she does want to develop, like you really see her trying, but oh wait, no, I've lost my point again. Sorry, continue. Yeah, but I did want to say, like, Daenerys, I liked her a lot more in this book. I know Saf would have killed me if she was in the Storm of Swords live show with me, because I said she was a bit redundant kind of thing in that book. But this one I found she was a bit more like relevant, I guess. Like, I know she's still a bit removed from what's happening in Westeros, but I found it really necessary for her to develop as a ruler, and like the way she's kind of handling herself in Mereen. So no, I think Daenerys in this one was a lot better than the last time we saw her, because we didn't see her in Feast for Crows, right? So this is the first time we've seen her since Storm of Swords. So it was really interesting to see that. It was.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well that her character does kind of like a full 180 in this book. By the end, she's lost everything, essentially. Everyone thinks she's dead, and she's bald again, and she's blistered, and she's, eating berries that she shouldn't be. And it's just kind of like, because she's been burnt again, it's almost like they're just mirroring how she was burnt initially when she had the dragon. So it's just going to be like her second coming into her own person again, because again, she's been kind of used as a puppet, I guess, in Mereen by men, the man that she has to marry to get the peace that she didn't want to. So is this going to be another kind of coming into her own kind of moment for the next book, where she's going to become the badass that she initially wanted to be? Hopefully. And then descend into madness.
Yeah, and then descend into madness. I thought it was interesting how it's almost the final chapter, I think. I think Daenerys is the last chapter before the epilogue. And she's walking around it's the Dothraki Sea, so like the grasslands, I guess. Mm-hmm. And she recounts her entire life story almost as though it's the first chapter of a book. And it's like a recap on her character arc, but it's the last chapter of the last book we've had in 8 years, I think. Was this 2011? So it felt really odd, and I was wondering why that was, why he suddenly went through her entire life story in like an inner monologue. I think she's found by the Dothraki right at the end of that chapter. So I was wondering if it's just like a recap of like, oh, this is one of the people who turned into a Khal when Khal Drogo died. But it feels like a choice, because George R.R. Martin generally doesn't do that. He just expects you to keep up on your own and to do your own research and follow along. And like I said, the last chapter of the book felt like it's almost like he knew it was going to be like 10 years
before the next one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's just setting her up again. Is like, okay, this is what she's come through, what she's been through. So this is going to be when she comes into her own, maybe. Like, if we count all the prophecies as well. So it keeps, just bringing back the betrayals, and, the fact that she can't have children, like it keeps being mentioned. And I really liked as well how when she's like hallucinating, like, she's had some, not obviously like shrooms, but she's had these like berries that are really dodgy. And the grass is telling her that the reason why this bad thing is happening to her now is because she locked her dragons up and she was a bad mother. I thought that was pretty interesting. I was like, well, yeah, you did lock them up for a long time.
Yeah.
So maybe you did bring this on yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
I found it interesting how she put the people before the dragons as well. Like there wasn't I don't feel like she tried any damage control or she tried doing anything. It was like, okay, I'm gonna lock you up now.
Yeah.
And then
that's growth.
That was like when I remember watching it in the show and I was like devastated that she did that. I was like, you can't
it was heartbreaking in the show. Yeah, just seeing them crying and stuff. I think because it's all from Dany's point of view and at the minute just coming across as a bit cold, it did like that part as well did feel a little bit, like she just had to get it done. Is it like the whole part with like the opening the like arena and things like that? Is that like season 5-ish? Would you have said like I'm because it's
6?
Is it was really? Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was like early season 5 or something with that whole thing. The show's really fuzzy for me now as well. But I didn't realize as well there's actually an excerpt from The Winds of Winter in the back of the book. I really want to read that now.
Is there in mine?
Yeah, in part 2. But there is in part
those.
Yeah, there's an excerpt.
Yeah. I think I did look at this actually, and then I thought I'm not going to read it because what's the point?
Yeah.
Then I'll just want The Winds of Winter more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And
what is online? I know that online George has released like maybe a handful of POVs from The Winds of Winter. Like I know there's one with Sansa, aka Elaine, one of the Sand Snakes. I think it's Arian. Is that what her name was? So yeah, if you go online and you wanted to take a sneak peek, you could probably just find like chapter summaries or something if you didn't want to. But yeah, he's released quite a few chapters. It's just when are we gonna get the whole book?
Yeah,
I
right.
really want this book. I'm excited. Another one of the ways that it diverged is Quentin. And then Quentin died.
We all knew that would happen.
Yeah, I didn't think that this dragon thing was going to be a good idea, but I thought maybe that the whole point of this plan was so that he released them. I wasn't certain that he was going to die in the releasing of the dragons. Interesting because the Sand Snakes came in and we were following Ariane, I think is her name, who's replaced Elia. Like Elia's the version in the show. And she was complaining about how Quentin was going to be the Prince of Dawn, and then she found out that her dad never planned on that, and he had this plot, and then she had her plot, and then I felt like the Quentin thing was going to develop a lot more, with it being a reveal in I don't know if it was Storm of Swords or Feast for Crows. So I was a little bit shocked that he died. I'm wondering what the purpose of his arc is now, like what, because there has to be some sort of lasting impression on somebody with what happened with him, so it has to either feed into what's going to happen with the Sand Snakes or his companions, the 2 companions that were with him. They're going to have to be relevant.
He's talking to them, right? He's trying to get them on side, Barristan, at the end, right?
Oh yeah, that he's sending them on a mission to go back to the Sellswords. I think.
I wonder if that will mean, because the original contract was for Arian to marry Viserys, but they had no knowledge that Aegon was even there. So now I'm curious when they figure out that Dany and Aegon are alive, if Doran Martell will take Aegon's side because he could marry his daughter to him.
That's what they're trying to do. I think that's what Aegon's trying to do. Oh yeah. That's Aegon's next move, is to try and get Dawn on his side, which I think we are going to go back to the original idea of Arianne marrying the Targaryen. So that's interesting. It creates a whole new dynamic that wasn't explored in the show at all, because I feel like it's going to be almost a repeat of Storm of Swords, but Targaryens versus Lannisters. And have you noticed how there is nobody left in this world? Everybody's dead because of all of the wars. Like, all of the villages have been ransacked. Like, most of the, like, even the Lannisters are complaining that they don't have many men anymore because they've sent them to the Riverlands. So there's only the Tyrell army, and then Dawn never got involved in the war, and Aegon's just brought all of the sellswords over, which makes me think it's going to be an easy victory. And I'm wondering if the Lannisters are going to be eliminated, or at least Cersei's going to be eliminated a lot earlier, and the real showdown will be between Daenerys and Aegon, because don't know if they will. I don't know, because Daenerys is saying, like, she wants to do what's best for her people and things like this. So would she marry Aegon for the sake of them both ruling together, or would she say no and want it for herself?
For herself.
I'm under the impression that it will be a showdown between Aegon and her, just because the name of the book is A Dance with the Dragons. And in the previous books, they've talked about the historical event that happened like hundreds of years ago called the Dance of Dragons. And it was between like a rivalry between a half sibling or something like that. And each of them were vying for the throne, and, you know, they took sides and all that other stuff. So I'm assuming that the name of this book is kind of telling us the direction of where it's going to go.
But also John.
Also John. Yeah, it's like, I don't know anymore.
I don't know whether John being a Targaryen, it may never be public knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, he might find out, but nobody else did. He might be Azor Ahai, and then the throne is between the other two. And then it'll be really interesting how it's come full circle from, because we start up the series, not long after, in the grand scheme of things, the end of the Targaryen line, and it will be coming back full circle to them reigning again over an empty kingdom because everyone's dead.
Yeah, but Dany can't have kids, so if they want to carry on the Targaryens, then Aegon or John, if he even knows a Targaryen, will have to marry, because she wants to save them, but she can't carry on her line.
Look, her dragons don't rule Westeros, because her dragons are her babies.
True.
They could rule.
But then there's no. Oh god, yeah.
No, and the dragons, no, like one or the other, or just none. Just leave them alone, George. Just no.
Please don't touch the dragons.
I'm assuming. Well, I'm not assuming. I don't know where we're gonna go in the term of the Whites now, because they haven't really been seen at all. Like, the Night King is a mythical figure. He doesn't actually exist in the present timeline in the books so far,
which I love.
So, you prefer that he's not around?
Yeah, just it makes them more mysterious. Like, the more you know about a four, the less scary they are, and just the ominousness of the Night King and everything. I think what was so brilliant about, like, sorry about getting to the show and stuff, what was brilliant about the show, like, for me to begin with, was that they kept coming in like different parts of the show. It wasn't like always at once. It was kind of, we kept getting like flashes of them, and it just seemed a bit more ominous and like deadly, because we didn't know that much. And then I think as soon as like the later season started showing them a bit more, obviously because they were like progressing towards like, you know, the Wall and, you know, Hardhome and things like that, it was like, again, seeing more of them kind of diminished their scariness, something like that. I'm not good with words right now. I've been at work all day. But yeah, it's like in the book, in Dance with Dragons, there's always sort of like talk about them. They're always this kind of, well, especially with John anyway, there's always talk about them, but they're not really seen, and that's what I'm really digging right now. I know they will have to appear very prominently very soon if there's only going to be 2 books left, but I think that'll be much better for the books to have them come at such a weak point, because as you said before, everyone in Westeros is like scattered, all the armies are depleting, and the people are kind of, it's a great time for the others to strike, kind of thing. And just like with knowing how bad Westeros is, with like the state of it at the present day, makes it that much more terrifying for what the future will bring for them, especially with these characters that we are starting to really develop and like care for. And yeah, I just like with the other, it'll be really interesting to see if we see a lot more of them in Winds of Winter, because we'll have to. You know, it's getting towards the end of the series. We have to start seeing them more prominently and maybe learning more about them, but I don't want to learn too much. I really like the mystery surrounding it. I really do.
I do too, and I completely get your point that they're a lot more scary when you don't know anything about them. But I really want the Night King's view. I just want one chapter, just like in the next book, where you just kind of get to see a little bit of like the reasoning and like maybe a hint to who they were.
Yeah,
you know?
As long as it's done right, I will love that. But if you know, what George R.R. does sometimes is like a lot of exposition, especially through dialogue. There's stuff like that. But I prefer to see like the story kind of unfold on its own, which is going to be really hard because if he is going to do a chapter from the Night King's perspective, like how are we supposed to learn otherwise? You know, like how are we supposed to learn about him if he doesn't tell us through monologue or through dialogue? If he talks,
Bran, though, right?
Yeah,
like,
probably Bran. Yeah.
Bran
Flakes, yeah, probably him. But yeah, tasteless, boring, you know. But yeah, so it will be interesting. I kind of do want a perspective chapter, but only if we don't get a huge river of information that'll just be like, oh, so like I know how to kill this person, well, the Night King now, because it just seems like any other character. I don't want him to seem like any other character. I want him to seem like the greatest villain of all time, you know? You know what Voldemort's problem was? He couldn't stop talking. He was talking way too much. So the Night King is very great at just keeping it shut, you know? Just do your job. Do your job as a villain and just kill people. Like, that's all I want from you, you know?
I do hope that by the end of the series, I hope that the lore is expanded enough that we know who the Night King is.
Yeah.
I know it was like a fan theory that the Night King was actually Bran, and I see from the perspective of reading the books how that could be true. I also want to know a lot more about Bran, and I still think that there's something there with all of the Brandon Starks throughout history. I do still think that it is something to do with them all being the same person. So I'm looking forward to more of that. I do. The thing with Bran is that I do find that for most of the books, I have enjoyed his perspective a lot, but I don't like him because he's like almost a vessel for all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And you find like he's an excuse almost for us to learn about all of the law and the magic and the history of the world. So all of that stuff is the thing that I'm most interested in. Like we were talking about the Night King, I really like that he's this mythical person, like being. And I like how all of the fairy tales are coming to life slowly throughout the course of the series. So I'm interested to see how all of that is coming together and the future of like tying all these little bits of Old Nan's stories, who I still stand by. Old Nan was the only character who ever knew what was going on.
I was literally going to say, I bet it's someone recounts an Old Nan story and that's how they figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm totally seeing it be that way.
What did we think about Bran's chapters in Dance with Dragons overall? Because like I said, I really liked them.
No opinion.
No, just me that really liked
him and Arya's like stuff. I'm finding the Starks that's interesting in the like. I mean, there's not that there's many left of them anyway, you know. But like, there's just especially with like removing kind of Sansa from it. It's just like it wasn't like much like Sansa for me. It's like I couldn't care less about the Starks in this one, which is controversy. Like, I'm sorry, but I just maybe I will get back to loving them in Winds of Winter, but I think in this one I wasn't.
I just got confused for a moment because I was thinking about the Starks and then I was thinking about Ned, and then I remembered I watched Lord of the Rings last night and I was confusing Lord of the Rings with Game of Thrones because of Sean Bean.
Oh yeah. Both Ned.
Really confused.
Both guys, that's all you need to know.
You were like, did his head come off or no?
Yeah.
Was he shot with a few arrows or?
Yeah.
What did y'all think about Penny in this book? It's Penny, right? Yeah, I love her.
The dwarf girl.
Oh, well, the one who was The one who was Joffrey's wedding thing. Is
Yeah.
that? Is there? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
Well, I don't love her, but I just love that she's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so random.
I'm really sad about Crunch and the pig.
Mm.
Yeah. And how like she's just so attached to them, and she's like, "But what about Crunch?" And Tyrion's like,
Crunch.
"Forget Crunch. Like, we're slaves and we need to escape." I think in terms of Penny, I think the way that Tyrion behaved towards her was very interesting, because we've had the discussion before about the way that Tyrion treats prostitutes, and it's because of the stuff with Tysha and things like that. And it's also very interesting how, as a dwarf, he is repulsed by Penny. Once again, because of, I imagine it's because of all the bullying that he's faced and people telling him that dwarves are inferior and things like that. So I thought that was interesting. I'm interested in Penny's plotline to see where she's going, to see whether she is going to serve more of a purpose than just to develop Tyrion's character.
Yeah.
Because that will be interesting.
Look, he's going to get killed just so he gets, and does some shit,
He really pissed me off in this one. Sorry, Cody, go on.
No, why did he piss you off? What did he do?
It just couldn't stop talking about sex and sticking it in women, and it's just like, I know he was like talking about like and I know you went through that with like Tysha and all that stuff, but like, I couldn't stop talking about sex and like degrading women so much. It's just like I get it, but I don't get it because you should never do that. But like from his perspective, like it's so infuriating. I can't separate how I feel about what he's talking about with his character development. I can't separate it. He's an annoying little shit in this one.
I agree.
Yeah.
He's turned into like the awkward uncle. Like we all have one who like you're at a party and like somebody says something inappropriate and you're just like, yeah, okay.
Oh wait, that's me.
Which might make sense because like the small portion that I did read, I think I ended up reading like 150 pages or something, but he spends like most of that time really drunk. So I mean, maybe that's why you're hearing more of the sex, is because he's drunk, and maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
he keeps asking people like where do whores go, because he's still kind of looking for Tysha, even though I think that's a fool's mission. But the way that he's asking people, it's not like he's never just gone to somebody like, oh, I'm looking for this girl who is a prostitute or was a prostitute. Like, any idea where she could be? He's being like really lewd about the way that he's asking people. And like just randomly he'll just be like, where do whores go? And they're like, excuse me? Why are you asking me that?
So you make it sound funny, but he was making me really peed off.
I wonder why those were Tywin's last words, though. There must be something. But then again, we'd never get the prophecies answered, apparently. So, I mean, maybe not. We'll see.
But we'll see. That's all we're going to be like. We'll see. We'll see.
Or will we? Maybe not.
Or will we?
Maybe not.
Oh, gosh, I hope
gone by the time the end of this story comes out.
Yeah. I really like the grayscale in this one, though, as well, because you really get a lot of that in the show, I don't think. It's interesting with, I want to say Griff, but I can't remember. Is John? Is it John?
Connington.
Yes. Yes, because his hand's going, isn't it? So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked about that. I'm not sure how I feel about him, because I think with there being so many characters in the book overall, I struggle to picture them after a certain point, because I can only keep up like so many faces in my head. And because he isn't in the show and there's so many characters, I'm like, I feel like I should be more attached to him because he's like more of a father figure. And I do think like father figures are characters that I really like in books. So I think over the course of probably the next book, I would say he's probably going to die in the next book. I think I'm going to become more attached to him because I did really like his character. And the grayscale is interesting because we also have, I think it was Val who saw Shireen and reacted to the fact she said she's cursed or she's got no soul or something like that.
Oh, the dead girl.
Yeah, the dead girl. Which,
yikes.
Yeah, yikes.
And I'm interested in what grayscale is, aside from the superstitions and what people know. Like, I want to know, is it magical? Is it just a disease?
Yeah.
Is it a metaphor?
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, the whites are, so probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that develops, like if we'll see him going through it, if we'll get his chapters as it's worsening and what happens to his psyche and stuff. And also it means he's got nothing to lose because he's on his way out and he knows it.
Mm-hmm.
So he can just do what he wants, I guess.
I just realized.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead.
Oh, well,
okay.
I just know that there were prophecies in the earlier books specifically mention like stone, and maybe that plays into the grayscale or something like that.
I've just thought that I know right at the beginning I said that I didn't enjoy Tyrion's chapters as much, but I've just remembered that I actually did really enjoy Tyrion's chapters when he was traveling on the boat, and he went through, is it Valyria? Did he go through Valyria? Where all of the grayscale is ripe and things like that. I really enjoyed that. It's only when
it was when he opened his mouth.
became a slave. Yeah.
It's when he opened his mouth is when he ruined the chapters.
When he became a slave is when I stopped becoming interested in him. Because I was finding like Daenerys's chapters in Mereen, I wasn't bothered. I don't care about Mereen because it's the same as the feelings in the show where everything's going on in Westeros, and that's what you want to know. And then it'll take you to what Daenerys is doing, and it's like, okay, I understand that this is essentially going to be like epic backstory on why you are going to do whatever it is you are going to do, but nobody cares about what's happening in Mereen, unless, of course, the White Walkers take over Westeros and everybody moves over to Slavers Bay.
Yeah.
It's the only way that Mereen would be relevant.
It could
like,
happen.
for the end game.
I don't know. Maybe seeing her try to build up Mereen and like actually take control and things like that is kind of actually teaching us that she isn't meant to rule, that she isn't cut out for it.
Yeah.
Kind of setting us up like, things are going to go south.
True, could be. I also thought it was quite interesting. There was another point of view that I was just like not bothered about, and is it Euron's brother? Is it like Victorion or something? Yeah, I wasn't really bothered about him up until they got the priest, the Lord of the Light worshipper guy. And I was like, oh, okay, now it's getting interesting because he has like a smoky hand or something. Like, what was that? Has he got like some kind of magical flame hand now? Like, what? And the prophecies seem to be coming true for that guy. So, like, what's happening with Melisandre? Because she just not as good. She does not have like a direct line to the Lord of Light like he does.
Well, she didn't seem happy when Jon told her that she didn't know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
She was not happy about that.
He came at her, you know nothing.
Well, to be fair, the only thing Melisandre ever says is the night is dark and full of terrors. So maybe she doesn't actually know what she's talking about, because sometimes the night is full of light. You heard it here first. But I didn't mind Melisandre as much like in this, but I'm kind of over people saying prophecies now, or like being obscure and saying random riddles and things. Like I think she does it a bit too much now. I'm a bit over it.
The other guy seems a lot more direct. He's like, oh, if you sail over here, you're gonna get rich. Like this is what we need from Melisandre.
Yeah, rather than he just very true. But I do like Melisandre.
There's someone else I wanted to talk about. Oh, Stannis' wife. Isn't she awful?
Oh, I was going to say I hate her. Just like...
She's like the new person that I hate the most.
Just not even like her as a character, although she is just really irritating and thinks very highly of herself. It's just the way she walks into like... What? Castle Black. Is that what it's called? Yeah. She walks in there and she's like, I want this and I want that, and that person can leave and you can't do this and you have to answer to the king when he comes back. It's like, well, actually, I don't, because it's the Night's Watch and we don't answer to anybody but ourselves. So suck it. Yeah. But then Jon doesn't seem to be saying that to her. He's like, respectfully, I'm going to do what I want. And it's like, no, tell her where to shove it, because you do not work for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that something bad's going to happen to her and we're all going to be like, yes. She's just annoying. She's just someone who just gets in the way, and it's like, will you just calm down and sit down and just shut up?
She almost maybe has the attitude of how Sansa would have ended up if nothing had have changed.
Mm.
Because that's the vibes that I didn't like from Sansa right at the beginning of the series.
That's very true.
How she's like very demanding.
Cersei's walk in this as well. That was brutal. I forgot how brutal that was to read, but I
didn't think that was in the books. I thought that came later, so I was shocked that was happening with the sparrows and stuff.
Same.
Yeah. I thought for some reason, like I said, I misremembered. I thought that she blew up the Sept, and then I was like, no, that's just the show.
Yeah, that is just the show.
I was like, it's not in here.
Not yet, anyway.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Oh, Becca.
Sorry. Cersei, interesting things that have happened to her character throughout this book. I mean, I know throughout the series we've been discussing how she's continually making bad decisions, and the further on we go, the worse her decisions we're getting. But I found it interesting from the perspective of Kevin Lannister, because Cersei was always paranoid about the Tyrells. And as a reader, I definitely thought like you're being a little bit dramatic because you're so paranoid. So then I found it interesting that Kevin essentially confirmed her fears because he has done the things that she was trying to stop. And he's put the Tyrells, like half of the council is now made up of Tyrells. And they're saying like, well, we're not doing this till my daughter's proven innocent. And maybe Cersei was onto something after all. Even though we thought that she was being a little bit dramatic, but the I don't know, like the degradation, I guess, of Cersei, it was hard to read, and also even Kevin, I don't think she's broken because she's like acting more demure. But the last thing we heard from her, she was angry. She was like, "I'm gonna burn you all to the ground." So I think she's playing the part of being like a nice, respectable lady, but I don't think it's gonna last. I think she's definitely got something up her sleeve.
Definitely. I thought it was interesting as well that the Dornish think that the mountain's dead. Like, how is that going to be revealed? Because that's interesting. Well, it technically is dead still, I think. We don't really know, do we?
No.
No, they did say one of the last chapters, it said something about how he doesn't eat. None of his fellow like soldiers have seen him go to the toilet or anything like that. So and like 3 of the people on the council have the suspicions. They've not spoken to each other, but I think Kevin Lannister definitely suspects who he is. And he says that he thinks at least 2 other people on the council also kind of know who he is, but they're not questioning it. And I'm like, why? Why aren't you questioning it? Like, I think it's interesting because they're ignoring the existence of whites in the north, because I think somebody's come down, haven't they, to tell them, and they've just been like, yeah, whatever, you're lying. Well, they'll accept that the mountain's probably dead and just walking around and protecting the king. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, the way their bodies work, it's just strange.
He's kind of dead in the show, isn't he? Like, weird. He's a weird thing.
Kind of sad that we never actually got to find out, because I'm assuming he's like a Frankenstein.
Yeah, I was thinking that, yeah.
But
I want to know.
Like, concrete, like, what's going on there? Does he have any sort of function? Is he a puppet?
Yeah, like what kind of magic
going on there?
Use? Yeah, because I think
voodoo.
This is the first time as well that I can remember. It's probably been mentioned before, and I just like didn't take it in. But the fact that they would put like binding spells on their dragons and use, was it the horns to control the dragons? I just thought that was interesting because I just thought like they just had like a bond, you know, like Targaryens and dragons.
Yeah, like the Targaryen thing.
Yeah, so there's like actually like a lot of magic that like we still haven't really seen properly, like stuff that was in Westeros and then no longer is. So that'd be interesting.
Does the dragon horn have a name? Because there's a couple of horns in the last 2 books. There's the Horn of Yoramund, which is the one that brings down the wall. And then there's the dragon horn. And Mance said he had the horn. And then I think it's Tormund or the other guys says that he lied about it and they never actually did find it. But no, Euron's got one, and I'm wondering whether Euron has that one. Stop it,
Euron
Gavin.
has the horn.
He's got
Euron
the
has
horn.
the horn, and I'm wondering if it's the same horn.
I think so.
But
Sorry.
so what's going to happen when a Targaryen blows the horn to bind the dragons?
Yeah, that
Is the
horn,
wall
yeah.
going to come down?
Ooh. Sorry, my mind isn't that good.
Yeah. Oh god.
Maybe, you know, the wall's got to come down, right? It'll be an interesting take. Be an interesting take to see what happens when they blow that horn. Yeah.
Gavin, there's only 4 of us, and you've killed Cody.
I'm done.
She's gonna have to go.
Oh.
Oh gosh, sorry. I was trying to find out the name of the horn though, because I've definitely came across it. I'm sure it had a name. Gosh, damn it.
What's the horn? I'm sorry. I'm done.
Yeah, but there is there's binding magics apparently on the wall that stops whites from passing through at all. So the wall
Which
is
makes
more
sense.
than just a wall.
That makes sense because, like, I always thought, like, could they not just like climb it? Just
apparently, this is something that I found out from watching conspiracy videos when the show was on. Not from, I don't remember exactly where it is in the book, but when Bran the Builder built the wall, there was old magic woven into the bricks that stops the whites from passing through the wall at all, so the whites can't pass. Which is why in the show they use the dragon to take down the wall, because they can't, and they're all just stood there because there's nothing they can do. They can't go past it. So then they burn it down.
Like we were in the sea in this one, well, in the water as well, right? So that's like on the edge. Like
on the edge of glory. Wait, they can't go on like water, right?
I don't know. It says that they're in the water, so I don't know.
They're in the water.
Yeah, it said a couple of places. Yeah, the others were, I think, unless I read it wrong, but I'm pretty sure like John heard reports that they were in the water in some places.
Oh wow.
That's what it said in the chapter summary as well, which kind of makes me curious as well, because it seems like Hard Home is happening right now. So I'm wondering if we'll actually get a perspective, or if it's kind of just we're going to see the aftermath of it, you know, through possibly John's perspective if he is resurrected like he is in the show.
What happened in Hard Home in the show? Because I don't remember.
What?
That's where they meet. That's where they meet the Night King. That's where him and John battle.
Oh, and then they have all the little boats.
Yeah,
okay.
And
then
the Night King does this, and then everyone's like,
okay. So I think season like 5 and 6 are really hazy for me because I watched everything back to back. So 5 and 6 kind of everything just runs into one, and I've like forgotten some parts of it.
Yeah. Fake fan. Yeah. So what was I talking about?
The horn.
The horn. Don't bring that up again. Yeah. So we're talking about the wall. And I like the whole dragon thing. Sorry, no, I've lost it.
I really something about the dragons on the wall. It's interesting if that is the same horn. I really need to stop with the horn.
Yeah, stop mentioning it.
The connections, like how the dragons and something that tames the dragons is connected to the thing that will bring down the wall, and why. This is assuming it is the same one. To be fair, it might not be, but why it was buried right up in the north, and why did the wildlings have it? So things like that.
Why wasn't there like put in Mereen or something so that nobody could get it?
Yeah, like how did it get where it is?
Yeah. But maybe if we read Fire and Blood, we'll find out. But
that's what I'm thinking, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
He has to be giving us hints through these moments of history. Like,
he
does do a lot of exposition, but I feel like every time something happens, it like mimics history in some form or fashion. So
sure.
I'd be curious to reading that next year sometime, before.
I think I'm going to, well, maybe, because I imagine we're all going to come back and do the Winds of Winter if we're alive.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do like a mini round and do Fire and Blood right before Winds of Winter.
Well, there's a second. I think there's Fire and Blood 2 that's coming out next year.
Wow.
Like,
he would do.
I know it's like,
it's like, dude,
like,
write what you're
focus.
supposed to be writing.
Yeah, focus. Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe Fire and Blood is something. Maybe something's happening in Winds of Winter, and he started writing down all of his notes and had to build a history of the Targaryens. So he was like, "Fuck it."
So we could focus on it.
I think that's kind of what he said in an interview, that it's way more easy for him to write like the Fire and Blood, like this history, than it has been to develop all the other stuff. And I read in another interview after this finale of the season that now he's kind of, I think he's even thinking of possibly changing up some things because of the way that the fans reacted. So I'm kind of curious to know if that'll be true or not. Well, that and the fact that with the internet, like when he first started writing the books, the internet wasn't as big. So like if a person figured out something that was going on, everyone else didn't know about it. But then with the internet, someone put something on a forum and all of a sudden tens of thousands of people have a theory. So I don't know. He's kind of mentioned that might change. I don't know how much it would change, but
I hope it doesn't change too much. Like, I do want him to tell his story from the way he's envisioned it, and I wouldn't want like outside forces to influence him. But like, if things like the reaction to the final season of Game of Thrones, I hope that does influence him. And I want him to give us the ending I want, really. Well, not I want, but like the ending that he's envisioned. Like, I want it from his word, like his mouth, almost like not saying mouth, but you know, in that kind of way.
I just can't in my heart think that this is all a setup for Bran to end up on the throne. Like, that just in my head, that's just not where it's headed. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to be different.
Yeah. I think we were all pretty confident after the TV show ended. We were like, okay, hated it, but we trust George R.R. Martin. So a little bit nervous if he's going to switch things up. But I think I saw that he said that in an interview as well, where so much on Reddit was correct, and he still wants to make it so that it's being crafted well, so you do have clues and it makes sense, but he also wants to still have some surprises in there. Wow, I cannot speak tonight, so maybe that's why he's changing it up a bit, because can't keep it exactly like the show.
No,
it wouldn't leave any surprises, I guess. But still, though, it's so different.
Already.
Dragons, that he was going to surprise us either way. So I'm just like, stick to what you were going to do, George, but give us that development, though.
The development. I heard that he said that the show ending is the ending that he planned, but the secondary plots would tie up differently. Which is interesting because we've discussed, there's a whole character that just doesn't exist in the show. So they have to come into play.
Absolutely, unless they are with like nothing in, by the end of it. But I hope not. But all I did ask, do we have a preferred way for it to end? And but I don't think I do, like, to be honest, like, not in my head. Like, I just want, like, I think I've mentioned before, I don't take issue with like a lot of things that happened. It's just like the way they've happened in the show and stuff. So with the books, I don't really have like, if things happen the way they do, the same way, I just want to go from point A to point B to point C to point D, not from point A straight to D kind of thing. That's that. So I don't like have a particular preference myself. I just don't want him to fuck over the characters.
I don't think he will. He's a long-winded bloke. I mean,
right.
I have maybe a controversial opinion on the ending. I like the Daenerys thing that happens, aside from the fact that it's like a woman and it's like the female character, and that obviously she's mad and all of this. The plot twist of like we followed her and idolized her and been convinced and been waiting for her to come and take this throne for so long, and we see the corruption of Cersei compared to Dany, who cares about the people that she's actually ruling. Debatable, because she's nice to slaves, but then any of the citizens she just doesn't care about. I liked the plot twist of the fact that she did actually turn, like, she can't escape that cycle. But I like things like bittersweet endings, and like, I like to torture myself emotionally. So I wouldn't mind if that was the thing, providing that the plot was really fleshed out, so we actually got to see slowly her descent into madness.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like a lot of us have come to that conclusion, right? That we kind of want that to be the case. Like, we still want her to go that way, but we just want it to be done well.
Well, Zafina would.
Well, yeah, that's right now. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that's the general consensus of people who still wanted it to go that way. We just want it to be done
well. So maybe a little bit unpopular. I want Jon to be Azor Ahai, and that to be his thing, and I want him to be the thing. I know, but a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, then it's just like the straight male white hero, like classic hero tropes kind of thing," and people wanted it to be a little bit outside the box, but like. And then there's plot twists, and George R.R. Martin never gives you what you expect, but it's one of the things that bothers me. Like, the Dany thing feels like a good plot twist, but the Jon thing feels like I've been tricked.
Yeah.
So I want Jon to achieve that thing, but I want the plot twist with Dany.
I want him to achieve something.
It was so disappointing. I feel like it was because Jon Snow became the main character, pretty much. Of the show, and for him to just, I know he's happy north of the wall. But it felt like he's done so much, and just the way it's like, right, well, you've done this, so you're being punished, kind of thing. I did not sit right with me.
In my heart of hearts, the way I've always envisioned it was that I always hoped that Jon would be on the Iron Throne, and like, especially with this book, this is where I really started to grow and appreciate Jon as a character, because he becomes the Lord Commander at a very young age, and everyone is very upset with them because he's doing things that they don't agree with. But in like the grand scheme of things, he's actually doing the best decisions for not only the Night's Watch, but the realm in general. He's trying to protect everyone. So I've always thought that he'd be really suited for the Iron Throne, considering that, yes, he did grow up in a privileged household. He is technically, not royalty, but highborn. But he was also a bastard, so he still is he can be humble. In the very beginning, he wasn't humble. He's kind of a little shit, but he's grown to be a bit more humble. So I've always kind of envisioned him on the Iron Throne. But whether or not we'll get there or not, I don't know.
Because the whole thing with Jon is everyone said like, oh, well, he didn't want to be the king anyway, so it's okay that he's not, and he's happy he's not. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the people who don't want to be rulers tend to be the best ones, because the people who do just take advantage of the position. I mean, it might be horrible for Jon, and he might be miserable because of it, but he will do a good job, I think. He doesn't make the best decisions all the time, but he would have advisors, and the advisors that Jon would have would not be the privileged, like, people who want to keep the rich and fuck over the peasants like they have now. It would be, he'd end up with someone like Tormund on his council, just like bring it back down.
Well, that's why they want that. Excuse me. That's why they thought that Bran made the perfect leader, was because he didn't want it at all. So I mean, why couldn't that have been for Jon?
He seemed pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And then the thing is with Jon's ending, it's like, yeah, he went to the north of the wall and he had peace, but it's like, that really wasn't his decision. Like, they made him go to the north. And then, so I don't know. I thought it was kind of a shitty ending for Jon.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just want Jon to have a family who loves him. That would be full circle moment, wouldn't it? Because I would have passed at the beginning. I would want him to be have a fam.
Have a fam.
I'd just be happy with him, like, reuniting with his actual family, like with Arya and Sansa, and like maybe just living out his life in Winterfell, being maybe Jon Stark instead of Jon Snow or something like that. I feel like that'd be
finally getting
nice
his
parallel
name
to Ramsay as well, and what Ramsay did with his being given the name, like the family name. It would be a nice parallel with Jon, because they're completely different.
That's true.
I would. Can you imagine though the Stark family reunion? Because realistically, even though they're all doing things that are important, none of them know that. none of them know what any of, like, most of them think that all the others are dead because there's no internet, so they can't keep in touch. So can you imagine them all
on Facebook in 20 hours? Yeah.
So can you imagine them all rocking back up at Winterfell? It's like, oh my god, are you okay? What have you been doing? And them expecting to say like, oh well, I've just been hiding out, and it's like, well, actually, this happened.
Bran will know soon. Bran will figure it out when he's finally the Raven or whatever. And he's also, you know, the warging with the dogs, wolves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While we're talking about... Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just going to say, from the chapter summaries, it mentioned that Jon... I mean, for a while there, he actually believes that Arya is being married to Ramsay Bolton, and that, like... I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was kind of like Jon thought that, oh, I could go and save her, but he's like, nah, like I'm in that part of the Night's Watch. And I thought that was kind of surprising. Because in the TV show, it's not Sansa, sorry, I can't speak. Arya, but he's very defensive and is like, I have to go save them.
I think it's an interesting parallel to Ned, because Jon saw his family in trouble and duty came first, and Ned saw his family in trouble and his family came first in the end when he was about to be beheaded. Yep. So that was an interesting parallel to that.
Yeah, because we always thought that Jon took after Ned, but maybe Jon's making better decisions now. I mean, it's still made by, you know, but you know,
he still did though.
Yeah.
Trade.
While we're talking about Winterfell, what did we think about Theon / Reek / whatever, the Ghost of Winterfell? I think was one of his chapters.
Reek, it rhymes with freak. I just kept, that's all I can get. Like Reek, it rhymes with weak.
I found his chapters so difficult to read because I've been having issues with reading gory things, like, and it making me feel really squeamish, and his chapters were difficult to read because of how like broken he was, but then also the reminder of like, oh, I've only got 3 fingers on this hand and he'll peel the skin off my toes, and just everything about those chapters was just difficult, like the torture and just how broken he is as a character and what's been done to him. And then the mention of his teeth. And all of his teeth all the time, and then how he turns up where Asha is, and he's an old man, and he's like, "Oh, I recognize you this time," and she's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah. Also, what Ramsay makes him do to Jane as well, and like she mentioned a dog, and I was like, "Oh, it was a lot." It was a lot. The abuse that Jane goes through. Like, whoa! Like I expected it because I'd already read it, but like. Difficult to read, which is going to be so good to see Ramsay die. I wonder if it'll be the same way. I wonder if it'll be the dogs.
I want it to be the dogs.
I hope there's a battle of the bastards.
Oh god, same.
Yeah. Iconic. I hope there's a hard home as well. There's so many moments that I do hope, especially to do with Ramsay, because with the stuff with Reek, Theon, it is really heartbreaking when we did get a glimpse, you know, like. He's been in since like really like the very beginning, so he's like an OG, and he's probably like, I think death would have been better for him, like in his current state, which is like really heartbreaking. So like it'll make Ramsay's kind of death all that more satisfying, which is what I love about the series, is that when somebody dies who really deserves to die, it feels really freaking wonderful. And then when somebody dies who I didn't want to die, it's absolutely, it breaks my heart, which is I think one of the things that I think has been easy for me to do with the series. I always say like reading this series has been so hard, but that's been one of the easy things. It's like how it makes me feel emotionally. So I really hope that we get some satisfaction from this, because
mind as always.
I love it. So I forgot my point again.
Sorry, that was Bella's fault.
Cats always distract me. I hope Ramsay dies a very slow and painful death, and I hope it's the dogs.
Yeah, that'd be like poetic justice, right?
They did that part so well. And when you're talking about the reunions and stuff, that was done really well in the show as well. So I hope, like, when they do finally reunite, like, it's this huge emotional moment and nobody dies straight away, and that will just be really perfect. I'm really there's one of the things, like, I think it's great to talk about, like, is what we are looking forward to with Winds of Winter and that. But you know it's definitely going to be coming. Winds of Winter is coming, y'all. But it's
Do you think that the books are going to follow the structure that we wanted the show to follow? So I'm thinking that the Winds of Winter will wrap up all of the stuff with the I always want to say Night Walkers, the White Walkers, because it still feels kind of anticlimactic, you know, like one book for it to be the majority of winter, but the last one is going to be called, is it A Dream for Spring? Or for Spring or something like that. So that I think is going to be about sorting out the kingdom, which may contain the showdown between, if it's as we kind of theorized here, between Aegon and Dany. But I don't feel like that feels like enough time. Like just one book for the fights. Considering we haven't really seen them apart from when the Night Watch were fleeing from them.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like the things that we've talked about. It just doesn't feel like, even with 2,000-page books, like it just doesn't seem like things are going to get wrapped up.
Yeah, which is the same problem that the show had. Like, we're getting one final season of 6 episodes. It's not enough, you know? But at the same time, it's so much. Like, I have been complaining about how long it is, but it just won't be long enough to wrap it up. He's made so many threads. It's just, it won't be possible. We're going to be disappointed somewhere.
I'm not sure. I think it was Zaf. It was Zaf or Ashley said that the original plan for Feast for Crows is that there was going to be a time jump, but he decided to write through it. And just to have him write through that time gap and like continue filling it full of backstory and thinking from the beginning of the series, it's interesting because I only really consider the story starting after the end of the first book, because that is what kicks it off. So there's been 3 books, and that 3 books is not a lot has happened to some of the characters. I mean, some of the characters have had like huge story arc. And some of them, like Daenerys, she has had a huge story arc, and it's been about self-discovery and development of her. But in terms of her doing things, she's like, after the start, I think the Dothraki stuff is all over after the first book. So then she's just doing the same thing. She's just liberating the slaves throughout all this, and then there's so much to happen in just 2 books.
Yeah, and Arya as well. Like, when's she gonna come back to Westeros? Is she gonna come back to Westeros?
Yeah, because I was realizing when I was reading her chapters that the whole point of this is that she's supposed to become this faceless assassin and have no name. And I realized that I don't remember what happens when she finishes her training there, because she then comes back and does the things that she's not supposed to do, which is follow her own vendetta. And people were saying about the show, like, oh, well, it was pointless to go in there because she never used those abilities that she learned. But then I thought, well, does she have the access to those abilities because she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing? She's not an assassin for that god.
When she was in the show, she killed off the phrase, right? Which I'm really excited about. That's the thing, because she used it then. So that was why we were all like in season 8, like she just forgot.
But will Lady Stoneheart kill the phrase? And Brienne, will Brienne take? I don't know. It's like we've got Lady Stoneheart in this now, and she can get her own that kind of vengeance. Because I think when Arya killed, I mean, obviously it was for herself because he had her mother killed, but her mother is kind of alive, dead in this one, so she can take her own vengeance, maybe. I don't know.
Speaking of Brienne, I noticed I was nearly at the end of the book, and when I noticed that Jaime's perspective just disappeared. Like, he saw Brienne, and then he went wherever with Brienne, but it was never mentioned that it was Brienne, like, on page. Like, it's assumed, like, we're pretty sure it's Brienne. And then we just never heard from him again. I was like, oh.
What? Yeah, what is
Where
going on
did you
here?
actually go? Like, what are you doing?
She is taking him to Lady Stoneheart so he can die. That's what's happening. Because I know I mentioned in Feast for Crows, like, I was really unsure about Brienne's ending. I was like, did Lady Stoneheart have her killed because she didn't agree to kill Jaime, kind of thing? But it seems like, and you were like, oh, you just couldn't really remember if she was in Dance with Dragons or not. But it just seemed like maybe she has agreed to kill Jaime, which would retcon the kind of whole romance kind of thing that we had in the show. So
has asked, do you prefer the audiobook or reading physically? And I have to say, I did listen to some of the audiobook for this because work's really, really busy and I've been doing overtime. So I've been listening to a couple of chapters a day and then just reading the rest physically and like dipping between the two. I don't like the audiobook.
Do you know? Did you not like his voice or anything?
I don't like his voice at all. I don't like that. If we think about the map, the world, if we think about Westeros, it is very clearly in shape almost a replica of the United Kingdom. So his accents should have reflected the geography of the United Kingdom. And if he was going to do accents at all, which he did, but they didn't make any sense. I think like the Ironborn, one of them was a Cockney. And it just and then people from the same places, like the Dornish people, one of the Dornish had a Yorkshire accent.
Yeah.
And then, but the other Dornish people didn't have the same accent. And it's like, you're all from the same place. You should have the same accents and it should reflect the areas that you're in. Like, even if, because King's Landing in relation to the UK is more like Birmingham. But with it being the capital, it's a representative of London. So it would make sense to do stuff like that, like not have a Birmingham accent, like have a standard, like the Queen's English kind of accent.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's just all over the place.
That's the same complaint because they made bloody Tyrion Welsh. Like, why?
I didn't listen to a Tyrion chapter, so I never got to him. Arya was really irritating in the audiobook.
I didn't like
weird squeaky voice.
I didn't think about like too much about the accents. I mean, sometimes I thought he was sounded like really silly. But the audiobook for me was a lifesaver. I would not have even got part 1 finished if it wasn't for the audiobook. Because I was listening to that on the bus, I was listening to my break at work, I was just like on the go, I was constantly listening to it. Half the time, I just didn't pay attention.
Just like your discovery of audiobooks in general, that you've only listened to a couple, haven't you?
The Main Order was my very first one. In fact, before I started the Main Order, I started listening to A Dance with Dragons first because that was on script. But I started listening to the first couple of chapters and I was like, oh, okay, like this is going to help me because I was on the bus. And then, yeah, like literally my discovery of audiobooks was like 4 weeks ago. So, yeah, and now I'm obsessed.
Yeah, it definitely helped me as well, but because I was listening to it on script as well, I don't know if it's doing this for anybody else, but it kept skipping, and occasionally it'd take me all the way back to chapter 1.
Yes!
And like chapter 50, and it was
fine.
I had to keep screenshotting where I was every time I went off, just in case it did that. Oh my god, I thought it was just me. I thought maybe my script was knackered.
It's doing it to me as well, but I preferred physically reading it because I like to skim a lot of the description, and everything is basically like a pair of tits, like you know, it's just like
or a cock.
Yeah, so I skim a lot of that stuff. So physically reading it's a lot better, and it does wind me up that it's based on the War of the Roses, so it definitely is like the UK. And yet you had Mance Rayder being Irish, makes no sense. And then Tyrion's Welsh, and then Jaime's got a different accent to Tyrion, and like they grew up in Castle Rock together. It just makes no sense. It bugged me too. I hated it.
It doesn't make sense because I feel like I know obviously we're a little bit biased because we're used to how the characters sound in the show, but the show did it right in making the people, the accents representative of the areas.
Although the wildlings, I feel like, should have been Scottish. Like, give me some Scots in there, just like the ones that were really northern. But they were all like Yorkshires, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, it still saved my life. Like, I didn't think too much about it because it was like only my second audiobook ever. But yeah, I'm glad. But if I ever read these again, I will read it physically. It was just because I had like a deadline.
Yeah.
Because of Becca. Oh, I could have gotten out of this and all.
Oh,
but it's the last one as well, though, so it had to be special.
Yeah, it's true.
Can you remember when you announced the Catch-Up Book Club? It would have been like this time last year. Do you remember cast your minds all the way back, guys? And remember when you first announced Catch-Up Book Club, and from then to now, how's it been?
We were all so excited at the beginning because the show hadn't been a thing yet.
Yeah.
And then
We
we
were
all just
optimistic.
deflated halfway through this. I
Yeah,
feel like,
you silly sods thought that 2019 would have been the year of the thrones.
Mhm.
Oh,
I was just
We
happy
thought we'd
to
be
see
riding
that
a high.
because the
Yeah.
start came up on top. So I was just like happy I chose that from the off.
yeah.
I think, Cody, wasn't the Game of Thrones live show your first live show?
hmm
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so sweet. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
Oh, I mean, it might be quite funny to see what our predictions were then, because
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
although my prediction for the show was that it would be everyone destroyed, but Varys riding off on Drogon. Could still happen.
Could still happen in the book.
It could, yeah. Especially if he
I
gets
can be
hold of the
okay with
horn.
that.
Yeah, if he gets that horn for that dragon, yeah, he's definitely going to be riding that dragon. Yeah.
We truly were sweet summer children back then, weren't we?
We were.
Now
Yeah.
winter has arrived.
I mean, to be fair, I don't feel like we can be mad at the end of it because we all, even at the beginning of these live shows, I think we said it's not going to end well because that's the point. The point is that it's not going to end well. And then when it didn't end well, we were all mad about it.
Yeah. But it
It was-
didn't end
well,
well.
The way it was done, it was the
Yeah.
execution, though, wasn't it? We're not mad at how it ended. It's just the execution of it. So hopefully he can do it in 2 books. I'm nervous.
I
mean,
never thought I would say that 2 books isn't enough at this size, but I don't think it is.
no.
Mm-mm.
I think they'll both be split like this. So really, it's going to be 4 books, I think, for us UK folk.
I do think
Well,
they'll
that
be
was just-
long ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it's just like browsing articles while we've been chatting, and he said that he did do the thing that Becca talked about earlier, how it was only supposed to be this amount, but he decided to add more. That he's been really firm about 7 books, but he may change his mind.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
because it seems like he keeps on adding more to the story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily like pertinent. If is he pulling a Stephen King where he just really wants a lot of like backstory and it's not 100% necessary to the overall,
Well,
ending.
yeah.
But he also says that he wants the ending is going to evoke the same type of emotions that like the Lord of the Rings would. So I don't know. I felt like the ending to Lord of the Rings is pretty solid. So
Yeah.
I watched the first Lord of the Rings film for the first time yesterday.
did you really? What'd you think
And
about it?
she didn't enjoy it.
No, right. It's my perception of what it was going into it, right? When it was released, I was 8, and I thought like high fantasy was nerd stuff, so it wasn't something I was ever interested in. Now I love high fantasy, but I was always under the impression that it was like an epic fantasy, essentially like Game of Thrones, but a film. But it's not. It has a lot more like childlike stuff, and it's a lot more
Well, the
like
first one does, I would
whimsical, and
say.
it's not as serious as I expected it to be.
Fellowship of the Ring is a bit like that. It's a bit more like quest-like-ish, like chums and kind of thing.
It's
But I
kind
think
of
it breaks
like-
off in like Two Towers and Return of the King is a bit more grown up, I think.
Return of the King is like
Return of the King is like,
it's good.
It just wasn't what I
Good.
expected, and then you have like it was a lot lighter than I expected it to be. It was kind of like The Princess Bride,
what?
a little bit less cheesy.
I've never heard it described like that.
So like the Princess Bride would have been inspired by
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but just like I'm on like the movie style of it, kind of thing. It felt like
Right.
cheesy 90s TV show kind of like I don't know. But we did also just get the reason we watched it is we just got an Ultra HD 4K TV, and that has ruined everything for me because everything is so clear that you can tell that it's a set. Because you don't have like a blend in, every pixel is really clear, so you can see the distinction between a character here and then like a cardboard set behind. So it's ruined.
Oh,
everything.
yeah, that'll ruin the magic for you.
Yeah.
I do watch all of my stuff in 4K now, and it does for The Wizard of Oz. You can tell Munchkin Land is plastic. So, but I still love it. I still love the high definitionness of it. Like Game of Thrones, season 8 is supposed to be released on 4K. So, like, for like the Battle of Winterfell, like the Long Night episode, that would be really good to see because they'll probably be able to actually see most of it. But because like obviously like it'll be clearer, it'll have HDR and things like that. But I don't think we're getting a 4K in the UK, so I'm I'm a bit miffed about that. Not that I really want to buy the season, like I was gonna just like forget about it, but I kind of do because I have all of the other ones and I just want to complete the set. I'm a completionist, so yeah, and that's why. But I really want to rewatch the first 3 episodes at least, just so I can. In fact, actually, I want to rewatch the entire season 8 just to see if I change my mind about it.
I want to rewatch the whole show
Show
because
from
I've only
the
ever
entire-
watched it once. Because I
Oh, wow.
didn't watch it until season 5 was on TV. Because I tried to watch the first episode 3 times.
Wow.
And because the beginning is so slow with the Starks finding the wolves, I just lost interest twice. And then it was only because I just met Curtis at the time and he said he made me sit through the full episode. And when I watched the full episode, I was hooked.
How sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks to
No.
Curtis.
I know.
He's a keeper. I actually think like the whole Starks finding the direwolves and everything like so iconic now that I think at the time I found it like really slow going and hard to get through, but I think it's like I think it's a great start of a story, like especially with the traitor at the very beginning and the people getting killed by the White Walkers and stuff, all the others, and it's just such an iconic opening now. It's just it's great, and just how much the first season adapted the first book so well. And then, like, in my opinion, compared to the other seasons, even, like, say, season 5 in Dance with Dragons, it's, you know, it just diverged.
The picture of the horse, right, where it's, like, perfect. The first seasons.
Oh, yeah. And then, 5, 6, 7. That's hilarious.
We had some hopes, didn't we?
We did. Children.
We still have high hopes for Winds of Winter if it ever becomes a thing.
Well,
I think regarding the show overall, they did a good job for an adaptation of such an epic book. Like most of, aside from the last season, overall it was.
They would have done better with more episodes, definitely.
The Winds of Winter, not the Winds, the Battle for Winterfell in season 8 probably is one of my favorite episodes of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was so well done. It blew my freaking mind.
Apart from the fact that a lot of characters should have died, and I think it was a bit too convenient for a lot of them. Apart from that, absolutely, it's still like absolutely flawed.
I expected all of Lord of Rings to be like the Battle of Winterfell constantly.
No, Two Towers and Return of the King, yes.
And it was like the what's the Shire? That's what it's called. The Shire was like Munchkin Land, especially because it's so green, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, but I guess that's a point because like The Hobbit is a children's book, really. Like J.R.R. Tolkien wrote it as a children's book, so the Shire part of it is a bit like childhood. Like I like the analogy of that. We start in the Shire because it's like we start with childhood, and then by the time you get to the end of Return of the King, the grown up, it's it's like a totally different setting. It's dark, it's horrible, it's gloomy, and stuff like that. Saying that, I did read the Lord of the Rings for the first time earlier this year, and that was a really tough read, like way tougher than Game of Thrones for me, but I really enjoyed them.
Don't say that because Ashley's just bought me the full series in hardback, and I'm like, I want to read them.
Oh, has
I need to read them too. I've only read The Hobbit. I really need to get to them.
Yeah, you should. I like The Hobbit, but I think the Lord of the Rings, it was tough, but I'm so glad I read them. So glad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't rate them all individually either because it does like follow one from the other. It's not like it is one thing. But that's why I gave them all 4 stars because it was just it's hard to give one less than the other kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So whereas with this, like I could easily I gave both parts 4 stars, but I could have easily given one 5 over the other, if you know what I mean. Like one was closer to a 5 than the other part.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry to change topic.
Back to Lord of
Let's talk about Frozen 2 now.
Let it go.
Excuse me.
So,
show yourself out.
do we have? Is there anything that we've missed specifically in A Dance with Dragons? Any character perspectives we haven't talked about?
We didn't really talk much about. Oh, we know we did. I was going to say Cersei there. Not that I can think of.
No.
The Iron Suitor. Oh no, we have briefly. The Queen's Guard. Oh no.
We have discussed the Martells. We talked about Cersei a little bit.
And Dany, and Reek, and John.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I Anybody have a favorite moment from Dance with Dragons?
Probably when she gets on the dragon and flies off.
Yeah, she's like, fuck this, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah, like
that was an interesting scene because it was like I feel like it was a lot more haphazard than it was portrayed in the show. Like, I don't think she intended to get on him and fly away at that point. It just kind of happened. Well, how do you feel
always
about
bald in the show and the book as well, but in the show she never was bald.
Oh yeah, she was never bald at all.
Yeah.
What do we feel about her husband? Like, do we think was the one? He was trying to poison her?
Oh yeah, totally.
Because he doesn't exist in the show at all. But I'm always like, because it was made out that he was poisoning her, and like everybody's like given the logic, but then with Game of Thrones in general, you get all the logic that leads you to one conclusion, but that's not actually right. That's a little bit like
with Lady of Thorns and all that, when she was the one that actually killed Joffrey. You didn't find out until afterwards. Like, yeah, so maybe.
Is that canon in the books? Does she kill him in the books?
Yeah, and then also the reason why this whole thing started was because of Joffrey, right? It was Joffrey who
cut off Ned's head.
Essentially.
Yeah. The amount of times Ned is mentioned as well, it's like he never died.
I'm pretty sure in Storm of Swords, she pretty much straight up tells Sansa that she killed him.
Yeah.
She hints at it, but pretty clearly that she killed Joffrey. And I'm shocked that because it was a big reveal in the show for me when I found out, but in the book it's just like as it happened, she's like pretty much.
What did she say in the show game? Was she like tell Cersei it was me or something like that? Or...
Yeah, tell Cersei it was me, and it took a while for me to click.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, that was really good.
There's been some shocking kind of twists that are almost downplayed throughout the series. So I feel like it's probably going to go the same way in regards to who was trying to kill Daenerys as well. And maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it's too obvious. Because I was shocked when I found out it was, Joffrey who orchestrated the whole of no, it wasn't, was it, actually? I'm talking crap. It was him who orchestrated some stuff, but it was Lady Arryn, wasn't it, who was the reason for the whole thing. Like, she killed her husband, and then Ned went because he thought it was the Lannisters. But it was...
yeah.
It's always someone, like...
It is. It's a very
But Littlefinger isn't there, telling Lady Arryn to do. It's like... So is this really boiling down between Varys and Littlefinger? Like, who's the biggest?
They're going to be on dragon each, and that's how it's going to be end. That's going to be the Dance with the Dragons. It's going to be Varys on one, Littlefinger on the other.
They're just going to wave at each other as they fly away.
Or like in the very end of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, when he's flying on the broomstick, he's like, ah, and then he's like, his face is right at the screen.
That's how
I do have a question about Rhaegar and Lyanna. Because it's mentioned more than once in this book. One person who mentions it is Barristan the Bold, and I can't remember who else it is that mentions it. But they mention that Rhaegar loved Lyanna. And I can't remember whether that's common knowledge. Like, does everybody think that Rhaegar loved Lyanna and it was unrequited? Or do they think that he just took her?
I think people are under the impression that he took her and then raped her.
Yeah, but because the way that he does it, and Dany doesn't react to if he's had this knowledge this entire time and just hasn't told anybody. So I thought maybe that people did think that he loved her, but in like a mad way, like he was obsessed with her and took her. Because that's kind of a big deal as a reader to find, like, this is the hints that are coming in that he didn't kidnap her.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But then it's annoying because it's like, if you knew that he loved her, then why did this have to be a whole thing? Like, if Lyanna had have just stood up and said, he hasn't taken me, I've not been kidnapped, and I've not been raped, none of this would have happened.
Well, I guess that's kind of maybe the fact that she died, like she didn't have that opportunity to, and then no one would believe them otherwise, because neither one of them were alive to say otherwise.
I thought that she was only in hiding. I thought she was in hiding because they were looking for her. I don't understand why she ever had to hide. because she's from a powerful family and he's from a powerful family, so they both would have been able to protect. They both would have been protected from the others.
Wasn't he hiding from?
I guess it was more.
I'm not. I thought that she was hiding from Robert because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
why
I thought
didn't
that
she just
too.
come out and say? Because, like, obviously, like, there's her honor and the fact that they were married, but all of that stuff. But he was married to Elia from Dawn. But to the point where, like, the people are going to war for you because of you. She should have just told them.
Well, she's like, what, 16 at the time? So maybe it's just like one of those things where she was just really young and wasn't thinking. And then by the time they realized, like, oh shit, like this is real serious, there was no turning back at that point.
Yeah.
I'd be
curious.
The full story from. I'm guessing. I'm not sure how the reveal is going to come. I'm not sure if somebody who knows is going to reveal it at some point, or I'm not sure if it's going to be one of Bran's visions. But if it is Bran's vision, then I hope that we get the full story from, like, Bran watching directly what is happening.
Yeah.
And we get like a full explanation and not just like cryptic hints, which we have done because in this, Bran has a vision looking through the heart tree of Lyanna pregnant.
Yeah. It's also really interesting as well that even though they all think that he stole Lyanna and raped her and all that stuff, everyone's always like, Rhaegar would have been a great king. Rhaegar was great. Loved him. He was the best one. Oh, shit.
Well, people don't believe that he did that. This is the thing, because they're like, oh, he would have been great. And then somebody says like, oh, but he did rape Lyanna Stark. And then they all say, well, I don't think he did. So it's like everybody, but then that's the two sides, isn't it? There's the Targaryen supporters and the people who were in the rebellion. So the Targaryen supporters will obviously omit the fact that he was a rapist, while the rebellion is always going to push that to make what they did right. So it's interesting.
Too much for my little brain to comprehend at 10 o'clock on the
Sunday. There's a line actually in this that I liked, and it was something about how there's never going to be peace while the while people are trying to avenge their what's the bloody word? Oh my god, avenge their line, avenge their forefathers for, plights that had happened against them in the past. Like, the sons are always going to fight for the past generations, so there's never going to be any forgiveness. It's constantly and constantly and constantly.
Circle life.
But it's in here somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're looking through that book now as if you're going to find it. Girl, it's 1,000 pages long.
My dog ear is gone, so. I found it.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it always happens, my father says. So long as men remember the wrongs done to their forebears, no peace will ever last. So we go on century after century with us hating the Brackens and them hating us. So it's about the Blackwoods and the Brackens. But yeah, well, that was like, yeah.
That's perfect,
pretty poignant, actually. Okay, so does anybody have any last thoughts?
I'm just relieved that I've finished it. It's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey. But I'm glad for the ride. I knew I was kind of late to the game. I only wanted to do the Catch Up Book Club in May. And that was just before we did Clash of Kings in June. But I read the first one so quickly, and then the rest of them, I don't know why it kind of happened this way, but
because of the show. I think the show it did it for me anyway. It just kind of
because it was like May, June time. It was about June-ish.
Storm of Swords, I think, was the book when the final when the final season came out.
Yeah, I have conflicting feelings about that book, because even though it was my favorite in the series, at the time I was just so bloody gutted that we had,
because it was the best time to do a read along, but also the show ruined it for us.
Yeah. So maybe last year would have been a little bit better than between
next year we don't do
8.
anything that's being adapted currently.
I was going to say The Witcher. I was actually interested in reading The Witcher. That's getting adapted.
Agreed.
I've read the first book of the Witcher series. It's short stories though, the first book, so it wasn't too exciting.
Well, yeah, sorry, yeah. Lasting thoughts. Good. I think it's like such a well-developed series, like so far, anyway. And I really commend him for writing what he has so far. Like, genuinely, major props to him. I don't know how he's contained this world in his head. It must be such a relief to get it down. But it's been a ride. It's been really, it's been one for the pages.
Yeah,
agreed.
I think before we wrap it up, I might just reveal the series that we're doing next year for the people who have been here this long.
Do you have the hashtag as well? Do you...
I can do the hashtag.
Yes, please.
For the group that we have at the minute, we are going to be slightly disjointed. For the next series we're doing, we will be losing Ashley and Gavin. We'll see them later on in the year because I am going to be changing the structure of the book club a little bit. Essentially, I found with this process of doing Game of Thrones, when you're reading such a long series and you're reading all the books back to back, it can get a bit much. So the next series we will be doing is going to be The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. And by series, I mean the entire universe. So, yeah. But we're going to be doing it in a way that we will be dipping in and yeah, okay, Ashley wants to know the hashtag, so I'll type it in the chat.
No, say it out loud.
You have to do this too when you do it.
It's Linglong.
Say it out loud.
We will be doing Elder Linglong. Yeah, the structure will be a little bit different. So we have Cody will be back for the Elder Lingalong, and Gavin and Ashley will be joining us for possibly, depending on the series. I mean, you guys might not want to, but we will be splitting the Robin Hobb trilogies up with smaller self-contained trilogies. Examples are things like Lord of the Rings would be one, Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, that would be one, and things like that, just to try and keep the momentum going a little bit. And then if you are currently reading Realm of the Elderlings, I guess you can jump in at any point where you're up to in the trilogies. We will also be having Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction, who is in the chat. She will be joining us for the Elder Lingalong.
Yep. Melody Lash.
And we will see anybody. Melanie's just said, what series are you referring to? It's essentially everything by Robin Hobb.
And there's
it's like 16. It's like 16 books.
16. Yeah. So Farseer first.
None of us will be. Yeah, the Farseer trilogies first, and then Cody, I'm going to be coming to you to tell me which way we should go after that, because there's two possibilities, isn't there?
Ship of Magic after that.
Yeah,
I haven't read it.
Traders.
Huh?
That's the Live Ship Traders, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I've been told the best to do. That's what I'm on, because I've read Farseer, but I've not on Ship of Magic yet because it's huge and I'm scared. But I'm done with this now at least. So
yeah.
Throw them away.
Okay, so that's what we have to look forward to in 2020. As I said, we'll be taking a break for a couple of months just to set up all of the new book club stuff and take a little bit of a break at the beginning of next year. But it has been a pleasure bringing you a ring along. A read along of the entire Song of Ice and Fire series. Thank you to my lovely hosts, including Rich and Zaf, who aren't here. Both of those will be back for Robin Hobb as well.
And also thank you, Ryan, as well for the sessions.
The
Elderling along. Elderling along. Elderling along.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for the first round of Catch Up Book Club.
Woo!
I'm cracking open some champagne.
I know, right?
Winter has arrived.
And I will be ending the broadcast now. So thank you for watching and joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I haven't clicked